Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to VTW Deep Dives. I am the Silver Standard Xstatic.
I am the real boss man of professional wrestling, Aaron Jones.
That's right, and today we're going over VTW Omega. All right, so Aaron Jones, this show and the whole show concept, the name VTW Omega, you were the one that kind of crafted that name as, with the importance of this show in mind. What does this show mean to you, and why did we choose to call it VTW Omega?
So Omega meant the world to me. I mean, this is one of my favorite shows of VTW history.
Oh yeah.
Not just of the trampoline era, the ring era, of all time. The significance of the word Omega. So you have Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and this was the biggest end of the greatest time of basically our lives. I mean, the end of that era, and we didn't want to go with a cheesy quote of end of an era. You know, that had already been done. So for us to have the Omega, the antithesis of the ending of VTW, it meant the world to me.
I really like the word antithesis.
Yeah, you didn't think I knew that word.
This show really kind of represented not only the end of our trampoline era of VTW, but it also represented, really, just like Aaron was saying, we were all above the age of 18 at this point, pretty much. We'd all kind of were starting to move in a more serious direction with wrestling and it just in our lives in general. So yeah, I guess with that being said, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the production side of this show. All right, so as far as the production on this show, and really with a lot of the shows that we used to do, we kind of had the same kind of production layout. Usually the music, this pipe's always kind of been like a marker here. The music and everything was usually ran by here. We had the ring bell set up here, and usually people would sit in chairs right along here. I'm sure most of you have probably seen that. But that's kind of how we would run things, and then we would, of course, come out of the famous VTW building door. So we would have like a curtain set up right here, and then I think at this show, Aaron's homemade VTW ramp was actually set up right here. So yeah, that's kind of how we had it laid out. I don't know what we used to make the curtain. I know we had those two, one of them was leftover biddy curtain, but then we had those two orange and black things. I don't even know what those were.
I mean, we had some kind of PVC pipe, and then it was just some randomness thrown together.
It was probably a limbo bar or something. There's a lot of weird stuff in the building, but as far as the production, that's kind of what we had going on. All right, Aaron Jones. So let's go ahead and talk about the first match we had on this show. It was Kevin Shaw versus DH&HD Drew Hood, and they were in a Rumble number on a pole match, and the pole was right about there. So tell me a little bit about that match and what was going on at that time.
So just like you said, Xstatic, here we had a pole match. I think the first pole match in VTW history, actually the only pole match in VTW history, and it was for the number 16 spot in the VTW Rumble, which would have been the next big event. You had Drew Hood and Kevin Shaw, two staples of VTW around this time, who had actually came from another yarding fed, who joined VTW and became successes here. And I remember this matchup. They just always wanted to be 16. And yes, I have 4 fingers up, not 16 fingers. I don't have 16 fingers. But it was kind of a rib on Cameron Jackson that they wanted to be number 16 right up there. And, at the end of the day, these two knew each other very, very well. And anytime they got in the ring together, it was a little bit of laughter, a little bit of seriousness, and a lot of hard hitting. But in the end, Kevin Shaw got the victory.
All right, some of the things I remember from this match specifically, like you always said, anytime Drew and Kevin got into the ring together, they're like two brothers, really. They just always have this weird, comical yet serious chemistry. But I specifically remember one of the biggest things from the match. I remember the stomp. Kevin did his Patriot stomp from the side of the trampoline onto Drew, to the outside, and it was on like a piece of wood. That was a crazy moment. I remember this. Okay, here we go. I'm shocked that this is still here. So this wasn't originally here. This was actually over that way. But this is Denny's house. There's a long story about who Denny was. It was one of Drew's alter egos.
Deadly Denny Dawson.
Yes, absolutely. But during the match, they kind of played around with this house a little bit, and I just remember somehow, some way, there was a brain buster off the house, and it was just gruesome. I had forgotten that had happened until I watched it back, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, yeah, a lot of wild stuff, but yeah, some really incredible moments between Drew and Kevin during this.
So also in Drew Hood versus Kevin Shaw, they made their way all the way over here. Now, if you look over here, there's a trailer in the way, but this is a significant area where we now film VTW. But Kevin Shaw, Drew Hood worked their way over here, started fighting in the cars, and then they brought it to this significant corner. This corner is where Deadly Denny Dawson lived, his house, right there. And if you'll actually come this way, cameraman Xstatic, if you look in the corner, that's actually an original pole from the original VTW trampoline.
Wow, I didn't even notice that.
Yes, that's been back there for a long, long time.
This is why I wanted Aaron to come on this show. Check that out. Throwback.
But we'll talk about that ring on another day. But they fought their way over here, and that was the thing about VTW at the time, is we really didn't have countouts, and nobody really cared what we wanted to do. If we wanted to come over here and fight each other, we could. If we wanted to get on the tractor and ride it down to the 7-Eleven, hell, we might as well. I know that they fought in the parking lot of a grocery store down there, which we'll talk about one day.
Yeah, that was a really fun match. I remember that.
But the significance of just this area, the memories here, the passion, the drive of this area is still amazing. And the fact that they used it all the way back then and yet it still gets used today just shows the significance not only of this entire yard, that building, this area, but just the significance of VTW and our friendship as a whole. Are we going to start here and walk that way?
Well, Aaron, it just so happens the next match on this show was myself, Xstatic, the Silver Standard, versus the illustrious Tyler Aiken.
Now, are you sure about that?
Well, it was one of them.
I mean, I think he came back with a little bit of dirt on his face, and I think we had Tyler Storm. And Tyler Storm was a whole different beast compared to illustrious Tyler Aiken, the Tyler Aiken brand. Tyler Aiken was a fun-loving, Hollister kid. All right, Xstatic, tell me how you felt about yourself taking on Tyler Storm in the Omega Street fight.
At that time, man, my character was just a real sack of garbage. He was a real piece of work, I'll tell you that.
I agree.
That's some of my best heel work ever. I remember specifically me and Tyler having this pretty drawn out feud, and anytime me and Tyler wrestle, we really like to lay stuff in, you know. And this was just one of those times. I remember the most significant thing I remember happening was, of course, the Lego spot. Tyler Aiken gave me a steel chair that had Mega Blocks on it. I remember that. I remember the forks. All the fort stuff. And yeah, it was a pretty brutal match. There was a lot of crazy stuff. But, you know, in a weird way, I think it really just translated into how much me and Tyler kind of love each other in a brotherly way, you know. I mean, Tyler also had been getting a lot of lashings for his current character, the illustrious Tyler Aiken. People were like, bro, why are you doing this? Like, his character's so dumb, blah, blah, blah. Even though if you really think about it, it really matched with Tyler's personality as a whole. But of course, you know, he came out as Tyler Storm, and yeah, he that boy gave me a whooping. I mean, he laid everything in. And yeah, really fun match. Definitely one that I'll never forget. And yeah, it still sticks with me to this day. All right, Mr. Aaron, your thoughts on myself and Tyler's no disqualification match.
So as you said here about the Mega Blocks on the chair, huge moment, the forks, multiple moments in the match. I remember Tyler Aiken taking the fork and shoving it in the side of your mouth, cutting you open. You're bleeding down your chin. But then also, not only that, there were multiple weapons used from under this ring. Back in the day, brother, pie pans were deadly. Oh, yeah. And we also had a trash can lid. But also, if you come right over here to our good friends, Dale and I can't remember the other one's name, Jack Thomas, Dale Pepper. I thought they got moved over there.
You're fine, okay. You're fine.
Jack and Dale, hope you're doing good, buddy. But right over here near our little soldier guys, there was a makeshift table set up with 2 sawhorses, a nice sheet of plywood, where you back suplex Tyler onto the ground through the table. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Tyler wasn't taking bumps on the ground if he didn't have to. There's this troglodyte just laying on the ground, and all of a sudden you came from behind and you hit him with a chair. Mm-hmm. And then the troglodyte stood on her feet. All right. And she hit him in the head with a chair.
So speaking of that, why don't we go ahead and go into the building and kind of set the scene for that whole moment there.
So, Xstatic, tell us about that moment here in the classic VTW building.
So, that moment was pretty crazy. The plan originally was to have, I was going to like smash the chair. She was going to scream and she was going to come back here. I told her specifically not to put on the fake blood because it doesn't make any sense, right? And next thing I know, I come back here and there she is, pouring it on her head. And I'm like, what? And I was like, no, don't. And she was like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, so yeah. So anyways, she's laying there. Tyler comes back here. He's checking on her. And yeah, I came by and swung a chair as hard as I could. Bang! Right there. And then, of course, Scarlett, that was her name, right?
I think so.
I think. Stands up, grabs the chair. I don't even know what she screamed. She said something and just bang! Whacked Tyler right on the head. And, that symbol probably seems kind of familiar. We'll explain that in another video. But, yeah, I got the victory over Tyler. It was a really cool way to end that match. And Scarlett ended up being my manager for a few shows after that, too. So, yeah. All right, Aaron Jones. The next match on VTW Omega just happens to be the final match between Avery Hoke and Mephisto. So, funny story, Aaron has this really close cousin named Cree Dome. Mm-hmm. And Cree Dome just happened to be the referee in that match.
Yep. I got a call from Cree that day. I wasn't even here anymore. I'd already left, went down to the 7-Eleven, went to get me a hot dog, and Cree calls me and he goes, "You'd never believe what Mephisto told me." He said, I was like, what? Cree, you single, brother? But the matchup between the boss man, Avery Hoke, and Mephisto, man, the rivalry had lasted years. Mm-hmm. And just for one last time for them to come out here and, let's just peel back the curtain a little bit. Everybody knows Mephisto was one of us. And this time, Zach Daniels got to play Mephisto for once. And Zach, just the way he went in there with Avery and he was like, we're just going to have some fun. The stuff he said, and there's one infamous spot. So if you'll follow me there, do you see this wonderful tree right here?
Oh, yeah.
So, Mephisto on the edge of our trampoline and Avery Hoke coming through, giving him a huge Avery drop kick. Mephisto flying into that tree.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the greatest moments in VTW's illustrious history.
That's one of the coolest moments. And actually, if I remember correctly, didn't Cree Dome use one of the forks from the Xstatic match to hit Mephisto on the hand?
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. And actually, Aaron, not to kind of harp on a really lighthearted match, but the real significance behind this match in particular is just like we were talking about earlier with Omega being the end of our trampoline days. We actually all thought this was going to be Avery's last match. We didn't think he was going to get into the ring with us. Avery, Avery was an older guy, and we were all 18, 19 years old. We were like, there's just no possible way Avery's going to be able to get in the ring.
But were we sadly mistaken?
Oh,
Avery did go, and he got in the VTW ring once we got it. But the significance here was, not only finishing the storyline between Avery and Mephisto, but if you go back and watch the end, and Avery won, and we all sat here and thought this was Avery's last match. And the cool thing is myself versus Dustin Reagan was the main event that day, but it wasn't the last match we filmed. The last match that was ever filmed on a trampoline in this area was Avery and Mephisto. And myself, Zach, you, Tyler, and Dustin Reagan all got in the trample ring with Avery, and we all celebrated. We all held his hands up, and we all just took that moment in of this was really, truly the end of an era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got very emotional watching that whole moment earlier, when I had kind of breezed through the show one last time. And yeah, it was one of those moments that, like, I still remember. I remember just being in tears. I thought this was the last time I was going to get to see the Boss Man wrestle ever. And yeah, we were very much mistaken.
And the cool thing about all of us getting in the ring is something I actually want to come back to at the end of this, where we talk about after we were all wrapped up that day. So you'll have to stay tuned to the end of this video to hear about that. Alrighty, Xstatic, the next matchup for the YouTube title, Zach Daniels defending his championship against an up-and-comer, Chase Bridges, and another up-and-comer, D-Lock, the Turbulence briefcase holder.
This match was outstanding, as per usual. You put D-Lock, Zach in a triple threat, and then of course to throw Chase Bridges in the mix too, the disaster. Man, I mean, the amount of moves that we saw during this match, some of the craziest stuff we ever saw on the trampoline. Moves I can name right here. There was one in particular. Zach Daniels had picked Chase Bridges up in an electric chair. He was on his shoulders. D-Lock comes over the ropes and literally does an eye poke, sends Chase backwards into a reverse hurricanrana, or a poisoned hurricanrana. I remember Zach obviously winning with the prestigious power driver, which is a modified Styles Clash power driver. I mean, really just so many different kinds of maneuvers. There's a lot of stuff I can't even name because I don't even know what it's called. They were doing so many counters and reversals, but yes, it was an amazing match, and that's probably why the YouTube title still exists today, is because, I mean, the amount of history that goes behind that belt and just the amount of amazing matches we've had for that belt really solidify that as a cornerstone here in VTW. Mr. Aaron Jones, what were your thoughts on the triple threat match that day?
So if we look back, and still to this day, it'd be no different. If you take Zach Daniels and D-Lock and you put them in a ring, you're going to have magic. Mm-hmm. If you take D-Lock and Chase Bridges and put them in a ring, you're going to have magic. Mm-hmm. If you take Zach Daniels and Chase Bridges and put them in a ring, you're going to have magic. And when you take all three of these guys together and give them the time to do what they love to do, obviously they're going to come out here and kill it. And, you were talking about how matches like this are probably one of the biggest reasons why the YouTube title's still around. And, if you go back to that time era and you listen on commentary, they'd always put over the prestigious VTW YouTube title. We never said that about the world title. It was the prestigious YouTube title. And for matches like that to happen, or like on the last episode of Deep Dives, episode 1 on VTW Mania, Zach Daniels, D-Lock also in a triple threat with Dustin Reagan, that is why that title is so important. That's the reason that was our workhorse title. That's the reason why, when people would come to VTW, they wanted to fight for the YouTube championship. And to this day, it's no different. You look at the talent of VTW's roster today, they still want to get in that ring and win that prestigious YouTube championship.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of wars we've had over that on the trampoline, in ring. I mean, it's a massive list of matches and moments, and this match was definitely one of them. I mean, all three of these guys, Zach was obviously very established. D-Lock had started to become very established, and Chase was kind of the newcomer, whereas at the triple threat at Mania, D-Lock was, yeah.
And this also solidified the fact that we knew that D-Lock was a future main eventer. I mean, it was our Turbulence briefcase winner who went on to win the YouTube title from Zach Daniels. And, it was around this point where we were like, this is the guy that we are going to set up our future with. And you've seen the success he's had since.
All right, Aaron, and I'm just going to let you kind of do the honors with this one because this was a very important match. This is one of the, probably the start of one of the most, influential matches sending us into the in-ring era. This definitely set a bar, in my opinion. Yourself, the anarchist at the time, I believe.
Yes, I think so.
Versus the 5-star matchmaking machine, Dustin Reagan, for the VTW World Heavyweight Championship and in a 2 out of 3 falls match. This was leading off of many incredible bouts you and Dustin had, and this was a good way to kind of seal the deal on what was to come.
So this was the best way to end a trilogy for myself and Dustin Reagan. A year before Christmas Chaos, we had a no contest. Christmas Chaos, the show before, 1 year later, we had a no contest. So to go in now and we're like, okay, we're going to see who's going to walk out the VTW World Heavyweight Champion. Going into the new era of VTW, the ring era. And, for me and Dustin to go in there, a man who I have the utmost respect for, a man who had went up and down the roads on the independent scene, the fact that I could go in there and learn from him, but also that I could go in there and hang with him in the main event of a show like Omega, always meant the world to me. And, the match is such a story. We start off slow, and we gradually build and build and build to these big moments. And, just some of the small moments from this match that also stand out. I broke my nose during this match. I was down in the corner. Dustin Reagan went to kick me. My arm got in the way, and I broke my own nose. There was blood trickling down. Good moment.
Oh, yeah.
But also some of the moments like we had never seen before where, I was down, and Dustin Reagan does the springboard over the top rope to go to do the clothesline, and I jump in midair and catch him into the Kimura lock.
So sick. Yeah.
At that point, Dustin had already got 1 count-out victory against me, and that was able for me to then get a victory over him to where we were 1-1 going into that final round. So, just moments like that I can look back on and smile and realize we were doing something right, I'm beyond proud of.
Oh, yeah. And this was like one of the most... with this show, we were really just trying to set the bar for the rest of VTW,
Yeah.
for the rest of VTW's history.
Yeah.
And it did just that.
That's exactly what it did when, you look back on it and you look at where VTW went from this show to 1 month later. And, we really set the bar high for ourselves, and, we put ourselves to the test. And you can really tell just by this specific event.
Absolutely. All right. So as far as this match, things that I remember, I was actually taking pictures ringside.
Yes, you were.
For this match. And
which we may put some of those in this video.
Absolutely.
I will send them to you.
Absolutely. But I remember the corner assisted foot stomp thing you gave Dustin. That in specifics. Really, really cool. I remember, obviously, there were so many Kimuras, man. Like, like you guys really made it look like you were trying to break his arm.
I was trying to win.
Yeah, exactly. But man, obviously, all the counter into the it was the choke slam counter into the RKO.
Yes.
Super clean, super sick. And man, you and Dustin always had fantastic chemistry. It really set the tone, like I've said a few times now, for what was to come in our real wrestling ring. And I believe, didn't you say earlier, the ring had actually, this was 2 days before we got the ring shipped here, right?
So the ring, we filmed this on a Saturday. The ring was delivered on Monday.
Mm-hmm. And we all, second we got off work, we all came over here. We were like kids on Christmas.
Unloaded the ring, started putting it together just to see what it was like.
Oh yeah. And Omega was kind of the send-off for that. And Aaron Jones and Dustin Reagan basically on screen sent us in to that brand new era of VTW. So get your Zen in first, brother.
Like I talked about after Avery and Mephisto, myself, Xstatic, Tyler Aiken, Zach Daniels, and Dustin Reagan, we all sat down in the trampoline. and we started sharing memories. We started sharing moments with each other, and we talked about what all we had done in this area that was significant, and that honestly molded at least the original 4 to be the men that we are today. And we actually had somebody out here taking pictures of us in there. I have those pictures still. And once again, I might send those to you.
Gotcha.
Add them in. But yeah, I mean, just the talks that we had after we had shed tears after Avery, and you know, it was such a good moment to just sit back and look at everything we had done.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a real comet hitting Earth moment. I think for all of us, you know, I think there was a lot of emotions. A lot of us were really nervous. We were really terrified because I mean, it is a big step. I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. You know, trampoline, wrestling ring, 2 completely different things.
Very different.
You know, we fortunately had Dustin there to kind of properly teach most of us how to keep ourselves protected.
Protect each other.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, like I remember getting in the ring for the first time once we set it up, and I just remember being like, this is insane. This is madness.
I remember we set it up in the building, and we all like got our phones out and were filming each other, taking like our first bumps in it, and rolling around. And I remember Avery specifically came down, and I remember him doing like some quarter rolls from his knees. Like he was like a kid in a candy store that day. I mean, he was so excited, and I remember thinking like, man, it's a shame he'll never wrestle with us in here. And like I say, we were so glad we were wrong.
Yeah.
But I remember that day just being so special for all of us that like it was also a point of dedication to go from this to spending, I want to say it was like $4,500, $5,000 for the backyard ring from Monsters Rings and Cages back in the day. So, you know, between saving it up ourselves, because we were all just young guys working, you know, trying to do our best, and then also like fans donating money to us. I remember KWE Tribute, one of our longest fans, donated $100, and that will stick with me forever. You know, that he believed enough in us to send us that.
Yeah.
For, you know, to be able to get our ring so we could have this beautiful end of an era to start the new era.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the show grossed about 4,000 views, which was really, really big for us at the time. And man, yeah, it was just a huge step. You know, this was a very pivotal show because VTW was white hot also at the time. That was pretty much the peak of our popularity on YouTube. You know, we were fresh off Best in the Yard 2, and we were all really, you know, nervous, happy, excited, super anxious, like
scared.
Yeah, I mean, because we didn't know if like it was like, oh, we're gonna get in this ring and we're just gonna suck, we're just gonna flop, you know, the action's gonna be boring, and yeah, but sure enough, we did it, and we're still doing it today.
We're still doing it. So,
all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed that, please make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to share. Cut the little bell on for notifications. And, you know, make sure to follow VTW on Instagram, Facebook. We always got something going on. And especially here on YouTube, go subscribe to VTW Wrestling if you have not.
but also while you're here, subscribe to the VTW Extra channel. And also make sure to leave a comment down below on what past VTW shows you would like to see us do a deep dive on, because we already have a huge special, episode 10, and we got a couple more to film in between there. So if we can get to that episode 10, it'll be well worth the wait. So make sure to leave that comment below of what shows you want us to do a deep dive on.
Absolutely. And the next one, I mean, I'll go ahead and throw some spoilers in there. You know, we may be at a different location for the next one.
Oh, are you talking about over there?
No.
Oh, you're talking about off the grid.
Off the grid, absolutely.
Man, what could it be?
Oh yeah, well, be sure to stay tuned.
Okay. Be sure to stay tuned to the VTW Extra channel for the next episode of VTW Deep Dives.